you think about it, you break it down into its component parts, being creative on any level is joining the dots, is seeing the connections between different pieces of information and joining them in ways that can be inspiring, can be brilliant, can be new and original, or just boring and looking much like something else. The big difference is that everything that you do, when you learn, when you make a decision, when you solve a problem at work, is joining the dots, is using creativity. Not every single solution is brilliant, and we tend to kind of ignore the everyday little things because we can't make any money out of them. But computers can also join the dots. Well, who am I talking to? You should recognize what this is. It's a graph of Moore's law, right? It's a law that states that every 2 years, the number of transistors in a computer, in the average computer, doubles. In other words, its processing power doubles. Which means that computers are getting better and better at joining the dots. And the way they do this is you machine learn them, right? You feed them a bunch of dots, and then they can join things together. And this is exactly what human beings do as well. But there's a difference, because a computer can only join dots that you've already given it. And it can only join those dots in the way that you've told it to do. In other words, it follows existing patterns, which means that quite often the things that a computer is able to create are not particularly original, not particularly new, and therefore sometimes not always the most useful things that you can imagine. But human beings do something a little bit different to this. Human beings have this bizarre capacity to see patterns and to see connections between dots where previously there were none, where no one had ever thought of that before. And what's even funnier is that sometimes we're not even sure how this happens. If any of you know any artists of any kind, a writer, a musician, a dancer, if you ask them how do they come up with their ideas or their poems or their routines, most of them are like, no idea, it just sort of happens. But it's a whole brain activity that takes place. If you're thinking left brain, right brain stuff, sorry, that's so 1960s, it's hugely out of date. Modern neuroscience has taught us that in fact there are 3 major brain networks that work together to help human beings be creative. And the first one of these is the executive network. That's our super rational decision-making matrix in our brain. The second one is the imagination network, which is what you would think it would be. And the third one is the salience network, which is involved with our motivation and our desire to actually get up and do things. What this means is that most of what we think of as being creativity is actually wrong. It's a myth. Creativity is not art. Art is just one product of what we can do with our creativity. So we need to think a little bit more carefully about what we mean when we say, this person is creative or that person is not. Because actually, you're all creative. You're not all artists. And some of you may be somewhat more creative than others. But at the bottom line, you can all solve problems. You can all see connections between a dispersed number of pieces of information, which means you can all be creative. Some of us have added specific skills to that, like technical art skills, coding skills, business management skills, analysis skills. And that's a bit like the sausage meat that you put into the machine. The 3 networks working together is the machine, and then what comes out the other side is very much controlled by what you put in. So if you're thinking poetry, you're going to put a whole bunch of words in the one end, and you're going to get a poem out the other. But if you're thinking, we need a new workflow process, you're going to put a whole lot of business ideas in that machine, and you're going to get a totally different product out the other side. Creativity has been studied in detail by neuroscientists and psychologists since pretty much the 1950s. And they're still arguing about what the definition of creativity is. which is kind of funny, because in the 1930s, a psychologist called Mel Rhodes came up with what is known as the 4 Ps framework of creativity. And it's still probably the easiest way to understand what creativity is. Because it's not a definition, it's a framework. It's a way of understanding a process which takes place on many different levels. So, the first P of the 4 Ps is products. What I've just been talking about. We think art, but an iPhone is a creative product. So is a new website. So is you getting stuck because the bridge is open and you can't get home on time and you have to find another route. That route is a creative product. It's something that you spontaneously joined the dots of the map in your mind to come up with. The second P is people, of course. Some people are more creative than others. They are more practiced. But what makes them creative? How do you recognize someone as being a hugely creative human being? And how can you help someone to become more creative? The third P of the 4 is processes. Here we need to be thinking of not so much about, I need to think up a new widget, but rather, can I create a new, a better, a more efficient, a more profitable way to do it? This is why businesses like Airbnb and Uber are so-called market disruptors, because what they've done is they haven't invented anything new at all. But someone thought very hard about the old process and went, we can do this better, we can do it differently. Sometimes being massively creative doesn't require a new thing at all. It just needs a new way. And the last of the 4 Ps is the press, which in the 1930s terminology means basically the environment. Do you work in a cool place? Is it inspiring? Are you motivated? Are you happy? Are you comfortable? Or are you too hot? Are you too cold? Do you work with nice people? These are all huge factors which will influence how happy and how creative you can ultimately be. And we'll see how that works in a second. So, to really understand creativity, it's very important that we don't get stuck on 1 P. I'm talking about creative people. We're talking about products. We need to be focused on all 4 to get a broad understanding of, as on a company-wide level or an organization-wide level, how you can start to move into an area of, say, innovation culture, or just a space where people are allowed to come up with ideas and they get acted on. So in a business like yours, of course, you're trying to solve problems every single day, all sorts of different kinds. And it's important that your solutions are engaging, that people want to use them, and your end users are, well, if not happy, at least they're using your stuff. So, how can you get into a brain state that's going to help you come up with more ideas? The neurologists, it turns out, have discovered that there are 4 conditions which are really important for coming up with new ideas. And the first one is absolute hell on open plan offices. You need to have quiet. And I don't mean silence around you, but you need to have quiet in here. When you're thinking about, here's another breaker croquette from the outside there, and I can sneak out and get it. There are a couple of thousand of neurons in your brain are firing. And when neurons fire, they make a crackling sound, like an electrical spark. Luckily, it's not very loud, so you're not all completely nuts yet. But an aha moment, like when you're sitting there, and suddenly the light bulb goes on your head, you go, oh, how many neurons fire when that happens? A couple of hundred. So if you're busy thinking too much, you will not hear that aha moment. So you need to cultivate mental quiet time, which is quite hard in an open plan office. The second key factor is that you need to be slightly inwardly looking. Now, of course, we don't mean staring in the mirror, admiring yourself. Rather, that instead of looking out and thinking, what are other people going to think? Oh my God, am I going to be able to deliver on time? This is so stressful. And worrying about these external factors which you cannot control anyway, you should be more concerned with, what am I busy with? What do I know? What are my objectives? What do I want to get out of this? How do I feel about what's going on? Be inwardly looking. The third factor is, yay, you're actually slightly happy. And if you think about it, that's logical, because creativity is positive, right? You have this, and then you make more, so the graph goes up. It's positive, like happiness. So it really, really helps you be happy when you need to come up with more ideas. And the last one is also a bit counterintuitive. It must not be effortful. You mustn't try too hard, because then you think too much, and then you stress, and then you're not happy, and it all goes. And then there are some mental attitudes which are really, really, really useful to have on board as well. There's 3 of them, basically. You need to be open to ambiguity. In other words, there is no one answer. It's not cut and dried. It's not black, white, yes, no, right, wrong. It's not for Donald Trump or against Donald Trump. It's somewhere in the middle. You also have to be open to complexity. But there are many moving parts. Again, that it cannot be reduced to simplistic formulas. And the last one, whoops, let's not jump ahead, is you need to be open to novelty. Because the way we've always done things just gives us what we've always got. And if we want something new, you have to change your mind about quite a lot of stuff. You have to let go of that certainty so that you can discover new things. How do you do this? Well, time, of course, is massively important. Here's a quick mental exercise for you to do. You can do it quickly now, or you can do it over the next 2 weeks. Observe yourself at work. And notice that time of day when suddenly everything's going really well. Oops, not like that. And you're solving problems, you're answering emails, you're coming up with problems, you're writing code, you're going through, everything's just effortless. You're on fire. What time of day was that? And do that for 2 weeks. There's a good chance you'll find that there is a time of day when you're basically better than other times of day. Maybe you're a night owl, maybe you're a volatile morning person. Maybe you're some kind of weirdo that's actually productive at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know. But if you can find that time, make it holy. Build a wall around it. Don't go to stupid meetings. Don't do boring admin. Don't do repetitive, dull, routine tasks. Reserve that time for real brain work, where you can chill out and focus and actually get stuff done. Because this is who you need to be. You need to be the pirate. You need to be the rule breaker. The disobedient one. The one who will not listen to the system, who wants to break out of the boxes. Because the boxes are there for efficiency. They're not there for innovation. They will not give you anything new. Because it is known, and everyone's done it that way before. So you have to deliberately say to yourself, why? Why this? Why not another way? Why do I have to listen to that? Why can't we do it somehow else? This is why management hates me. In a book called The Runaway Species, a neuroscientist called David Eagleman claims that in fact every single creative act is one of only 3 types of things. It is either a bend, you have a knife, but the door handle is loose, so you use it like a screwdriver. That's a bend. A blend, where you take different things and mash them together to make one new thing. Where you take, a personal computer and a camera and a diary and make a smartphone. Or it is a break, where you disassemble something and then put those parts back together in a new order to create something different. Try and think right now of something that's new, that's innovative, that's cool, that is not one of those things. It's quite difficult to do. I haven't done it yet. The last and most important thing is you must sleep. If you're one of these crazy people who thinks that you sleep only for 4 hours and that's super cool and fantastic and shows what a wonderful employee and business person you are, you're dead wrong. Because if you don't get enough sleep, your brain doesn't recover from learning. And more importantly, you don't go into REM sleep. And when you're in REM sleep, your brain does an incredible shake and bake with your experiences and your memories to sort things out into priority and to make connections that you consciously would almost never, ever arrive at. That's why dreaming is sometimes seriously psychedelic. That's also why, if you've gone to sleep with a problem on your mind, you'll often wake up, miraculously, with a solution. Because your unconscious mind is busy while you're sleeping. So 4 hours? No, stop it. It's also a good chance it'll give you Alzheimer's. The thing that's really interesting about all of this stuff is that following the rules, following the patterns, and patterns are what got us as human beings out of the caves, right? They're pretty good stuff. It's what keeps people in cycle lanes sometimes. But the trouble with that is that if you're just comparing yourself to your competition, you're comparing yourself to a pattern. And it's the person who comes from somewhere else that destroys you. I spent a lot of time in the music business, and if you know anything about music, you'll know that the MP3 almost annihilated the business side of music. Because it was unexpected. It was an invention that no one in the business saw coming. And something like that's going to happen to everybody. You guys in the banking sector know that better than everybody. Like, blockchain, what. Seriously, this business may be extinct in 5 years. What are you all going to do? You need to be a lot more creative, and so do the structures and the people that you work with. Because creativity isn't magic. What it is the ability to generate options. And if you follow the conditions and these little tips that I've managed to quickly introduce you to today, you will be able to be more creative, more regularly, almost actually on demand. Because it doesn't actually need a woman in a cloud touching you on the head saying, inspiration! It doesn't work like that. You just need to have time to be quiet and to let your brain do what it already wants to do. So this is what I do. I help people become more creative, and I help companies and teams. And what I want you to do right now, if you have a pen with you, because you probably most of you don't, being all techie people, is you would have seen a postcard on your chair. And you see it says there, dear future self. What did you learn today that you want to put into action? Write it on that postcard. And check in with yourself in a couple of weeks or a month and see if you've actually done something. Because it's all very well knowing this stuff, but if you're not taking action, you're not going to be going anywhere.